So I live in the southern United States, but I was born and raised up north. And when I first heard about this substance that they have in the South called buttermilk, I got really excited. I thought, oh, that must be some kind of super ultra high fat, extra rich milk. That is not what this is. What we call buttermilk in the US is actually fermented milk. Milk that has gone sour and thick. It's incredibly delicious as a baking ingredient, some buttermilk biscuits right there, but buttermilk was originally primarily a beverage, a drink, and you'll still find some older folks drinking it down here in the sweltering southern US, where this kind of buttermilk is originally from. Indeed, the oppressive heat and humidity down here is the reason why buttermilk exists. And it's also why we call this stuff buttermilk, even though it's not actually buttermilk. I mean, this particular brand is buttermilk, but you can sour any kind of milk, and here's why you would. Imagine it's the 18th or 19th century and you've established a farmstead here in East Tennessee. Let's go ahead and acknowledge that such an endeavor probably would have involved killing native people and enslaving African people, as did John Sevier, first governor of Tennessee. This is his preserved farmstead, Marble Springs, and it's in the Appalachian part of Tennessee. Hills and mountains, rough terrain. You would not start a giant cotton plantation here, but the soil is insanely rich thanks to all of these rivers overflowing and depositing sediment over millions of years. And what do you do when you have rich farmland that is not flat? Well, you get cows. Dairy cows require vast quantities of rich forage to produce ample milk, and they don't mind climbing a few hills to get it, hence this historic concentration of dairy farms east of Knoxville. Very productive gals these are, but that creates a new problem, because once you've milked all the milk, what do you do with it? In this climate, milk starts spoiling within hours. Prior to refrigeration, you could buy some time by setting the milk jugs inside your spring house. Marble Springs was named after this unimpressive puddle. Water burbles up from far underground where it has not been warmed by the sun, so it's cold and fresh and safe to drink. You build a little wooden shack around the spring just to keep leaves and junk from falling into your water supply, and then you notice that it's refreshingly cool inside there, so you start storing your perishables in there, and nothing is more perishable than milk. Even in the spring house, the milk is still going to turn pretty quickly in this climate, so you probably end up drinking a lot of milk that's at least a little bit spoiled. Sometimes it tastes nasty and rotten, but other times you notice that the slightly spoiled milk actually tastes kind of like good.
You know, if it's got a good culture in it, and it's just an accident in the old days.
That's Earl Cruz of Cruz Farm, milking Jersey cows east of Knoxville for generations. And when Earl says good culture, what he means, of course, is bacteria. Depending on which bacteria come to dominate your warm milk, you can end up with something that smells like raw sewage or like yogurt. If you happen to get lots of lactic acid producing bacteria moving in, well, they give the milk a wonderful sour flavor, and the low pH slows oxidation and it keeps bad bacteria away. So at some point you happen to get yourself a good batch of sour milk, and then, intentionally or not, you use your sour milk to preemptively spoil your fresh milk. Or down here the old-timers call it sweet milk. You mix today's sweet milk with some of yesterday's sour milk, it all ferments, and then none of your milk is sweet anymore, but at least it's all been preserved. Intentionally soured milk like that could keep for weeks in the spring house, and as a bonus, it's incredibly nutritious and teeming with beneficial bacteria. And good buttermilk is really quite delicious, but I'm not going to drink a pint of this every day for the probiotics. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Nah, it's more realistic that I'm gonna take Seed, sponsor of this video. Save 25% now at seed.com/Ragusia. Seed's daily Synbiotic packs 24 different beneficial bacteria strains into a pill within a pill. This can actually survive the trip through your stomach and into your guts. If the bacteria are dead by the time they get there, they won't help you. You know, we don't like to talk about it, but everything we cook and eat in here has to come back out again. And I definitely notice that when I'm taking my Synbiotic, everything transits much more smoothly. But seed isn't just about digestive health. Studies indicate these bacteria can help maintain a healthy immune system, healthy cholesterol levels, they can help with your skin, help with the production of folate in your gut, vitamin B9. Seed is all about planetary health, not just individual health. Containers are reusable glass. Your refills come in the mail like this, so you never run out and fall off the wagon. Go to seed.com/Ragusea to get 25% off your first month supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic. Use my code Ragusea. That's 25% off your first month with my link and code in the description. Thank you, Seed. Anyway, buttermilk. Milk that has been fermented by lactic acid-producing bacteria until it is thick and a little bit sour. Why do we call it buttermilk? There's no butter in this. You make butter by skimming the cream off of fresh milk, and then you churn the cream. You agitate it until the fat globules smash together and form clumps that we call butter. The low-fat milk that's left behind is called buttermilk. Wait, that's buttermilk? It's so thin! Indeed, because that particular cream was not cultured. Traditional European-style butter making often involves inoculating cream with lactic acid-producing bacteria before you churn it. That's why French-style butter is often a little tangy. The buttermilk you'd have left over from such cream would also ferment and get tangy and thick, and you might use some of that to inoculate the next batch of cream before you churn the butter. And even if you didn't culture the cream, you still gotta wonder what would happen as you worked it for hours and hours in a primitive wooden churn in the Tennessee heat. I wonder if the product would have soured on its own in that situation. Described thusly, buttermilk does not sound very appealing, I will admit.
My granddaddy sold buttermilk out of a horse-drawn wagon. This isn't a very good recommendation, but he says hogs do a lot better on buttermilk than they do sweet milk.
That's right, Earl's daddy said hogs. Buttermilk was historically used as animal feed on the farm. The people didn't want it that much, and it may have raised healthier, bigger hogs than sweet milk. Now, with modern science, we have some understanding of the health benefits of fermented foods. We know this is probably really good for the microbiome of man and beast alike. But among farmers, Earl says fermented buttermilk has long been known as a kind of energy drink or health drink to get you through a hard day's work.
I tried to drink it when I was growing up, and I'd tell my daddy, I said, I just don't see how you drink it. Oh, he said, I wished I had time to make you some good buttermilk. I believe you'd like it. I said I had to get married and be under the strain of marriage before I could handle it. And I tell you, it'll make life easier.
Yeah, get him started and Earl Cruz will talk your ear off about the health benefits of buttermilk. He says whenever he's drinking it regularly, he feels better, and that's probably more than a placebo effect. Years ago, Earl and his wife Sherry sold buttermilk at their local farmers market, and it was the old farmers who would buy it and actually drink it, not just make biscuits with it.
Sherry said, we lose buttermilk customers every day. They die off. The older people are drinking it, but we're still selling.
Yeah, well, fermented foods of many kinds are getting popular again with a new generation, such as Earl's daughter, Colleen, and her husband, Manjeet. Manjeet grew up drinking buttermilk because he grew up drinking kefir, which you can mix with mango juice to make a mango lassi, the orange Julius of Indian American restaurants. Apparently, mango is not as popular of a flavoring for a lassi in India as it is outside of India. But the point is, kefir is buttermilk and buttermilk is kefir. People say there are slight differences, but this is easily as similar to kefir as, different styles of kefir are similar to each other. So I'm calling this all the same thing. Because what makes kefir/buttermilk different from, say, yogurt is the particular kind of lactic acid bacteria you use.
I would love it if you would drink our buttermilk, because I think that our buttermilk is the best buttermilk in the world. But we sour it with the culture that we purchase.
Yeah, so buttermilk that's on the market these days may or may not be a byproduct of butter making. It is at Cruz Farm, but you can take almost any milk product and ferment it into buttermilk by dropping in some lab-isolated culture. The bacteria dust you buy from a lab gets you a much more consistent result, so pretty much everybody uses it now. To make yogurt, you would heat the milk up and then drop in thermophilic bacteria that are happy around 110 Fahrenheit, 43 C. Those give you a really solid curd. To turn milk into buttermilk, or to turn cream into sour cream, you generally want mesophilic bacteria. These guys are happiest right around room temperature. You just stir in a little of that powder and wait. Bacteria eat the lactose. They convert it into lactic acid that denatures the milk proteins. The proteins tangle up with each other and form a gel as opposed to a solid curd. At room temperature, it's buttermilk slash kefir in 24 hours, and it is delicious. If you go up to like warm room temperature, you can sour the milk in 12 hours, but Earl and Manjeet think the flavor is inferior, so they go low and slow at Cruz Farm. The big guys do it a lot faster, and they often have to add like thickeners like starch or carrageen. Look on the label. Good buttermilk is thick enough on its own, such that it leaves a residue on the glass known as a buttermilk sky, a typically mellifluous and evocative southernism. If you can't find really good buttermilk like this, then I say order some culture online and just make it yourself. Once it's all done, pour it out and you'll see little clumps of bacteria colony on the bottom or along the edge. In India, they call those kefir grains. You drop them into more milk to make more kefir, which is the same thing as buttermilk. And if you don't like drinking it straight, you can always try using it externally. Colleen says it's good for skincare.
Cleopatra apparently took buttermilk baths, and in Gone with the Wind, I think it's in the first chapter that Scarlett lightened her freckles by putting buttermilk on her skin.
Cool! Or you could just bake with it. Buttermilk adds viscosity and some nice fermented notes and acidity to baked goods. And if you're ever baking from a recipe that calls for buttermilk and you don't have any buttermilk, what I would do is just buy some yogurt or some sour cream or some creme fraiche or something, and then just like water it down, loosen it up by mixing in some water or milk until it looks like buttermilk. And that's the deal with buttermilk. Yesterday's agricultural necessity could be today's delicious probiotic drink. Take it from old Earl Cruz.
I'm sure there's a lot about buttermilk I don't know, but I do know this much. It's improved the quality of my life.
How do you feel?
Oh, I feel good. Yeah. I feel about as good as I could work as hard as I am. Let's put it that way.
Hashtag not an ad, just a fan.